Good morning and welcome to the Recount. Here, I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows, joined by Communications Director Emily Cook, and we are here for a recount. Deputy Secretary Julie Flynn is going to lead our teams from the Maine Republican Party and the Maine Democratic Party in the instructions. Take it away, Deputy Secretary Flynn.
Could I have the teams come in and sit one Democrat, one Republican across from my person at each table? Yeah.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
How are you?
All right, good morning. Morning. My sister was a teacher, she would always say, tell them to say, good morning, Mrs. Flynn.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you. So this is a recount between District 58 between Sharon Frost and Daniel Newman. There is a 44 vote margin, which is 0.7% difference. So again, even though we're not doing the tie vote on Thursday, every ballot matters, and we need to be diligent when we're sorting, and we need to be diligent when we're counting to make sure that we give credit to all the ballots that were cast on election night. So we have 6 towns plus UOCAVA ballots, that's the military and overseas ballots. We're going to be doing sorting first between referendum and candidate. The good news, is anybody new today that didn't count yesterday or Friday? Okay. The good news is that there is no other House district in these ballots. So our first sort is going to be sorting the candidate ballots from the referendum ballots. And then, all 3 people at the table are going to do that, take a stack, go through them, put candidate in one pile, referendum in another pile. When you're done doing that sort, if we don't bring you any others, you're going to go through the referendum ballots again, split it up between the 3 members of the team, and go through and verify there are no candidate ballots there. And then you're going to put those aside, signal to one of our crew here that we can take those ballots away. And then, because there's no sorting of different House districts like we had to do yesterday or Friday, we will put the stack of candidate ballots between you. If you are at the counter for Ms. Frost, and there's a vote for Frost on that ballot, you're going to put pull that ballot in front of you and start a stack. And if you're the counter for Mr. Newman, and there's a vote for Newman on the ballot, you're going to put that in front of you as the counter and start a stack. And then if there are any that are blank, there's no vote, or if there's a write-in, there was no declared write-in, so that is treated as a blank, does not separate it out. You give the blanks to the recount assistant at your table. When you have sorted that pile of ballots between candidate Frost and candidate Newman, this is where we're going to differ from the last 2 days. Each of you will count out your own candidates' ballots into stacks of 10. So first stack goes one way, the next stack of 10 goes the other way, what we call crosshatch. So you have something going north-south and you have something going east-west for the next. Keep counting them out into 10s. You should have all piles of 10 except one that will have a remainder. Maybe it'll be perfect. Maybe you'll only have 10s. Maybe you'll have one remainder with something between 1 and 9. You're going to write that number on a sticky note on the, and put it on the top ballot in the one that is fewer than 10. What is again different than yesterday is you're going to switch your candidate pile with the other counter. And you're going to go through and count the other candidates' stacks of 10. So we're not doing one count where someone's separating and one is watching. You're both going to be actively engaged. Count your own into stacks of 10, recount the other candidate stacks of 10, make sure they're correct and that the remainder number is correct, and that's written on a sticky note. When that is done, we are going to do a tally sheet for candidate Frost first. So my person is responsible for taking the Newman ballots and the blank ballots and putting them aside, and then having the stack of Frost ballots, and then put your remainder pile to the side. And then our person is going to, you can either hand them or she can take them or he can take them. I don't have any, yeah, she's good, all right. Anyway, and she's gonna take those stacks of 10 and say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Rubber band around it, they're gonna write 50 in the corner of the top ballot, put aside, take again, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So you're watching that and making sure. We had some yesterday that put stack of 60 2 times and didn't note that it was more than 50. So we're going to do that very carefully. And then the remainder number, you verify that that number on the sticky note is correct. And then we're going to fill out the tally sheet for candidate Frost. At that point, you all are going to raise your hand. The attorneys will come over and watch that first tally to make sure you're not, you may or may not have a tally sheet to start with, and they may hand them out as we're tallying. So we want to make sure our tally sheet gets filled out correctly, gets signed, and then you fill out your tally sheets, make sure that that's in agreement. They take them away, you take away the Frost ballot, and then we're going to do the same thing with the Newman ballots and record that on a second tally, and then record the blank votes on that second tally. So one tally is Frost only, next tally is Newman and blanks. It's going to be very important. Some of these are communal ballots. In other words, particularly in Kennebec County, they may have more than one town name on the top. Go by what we tell you is the town that you're tallying, because even if Belgrade and Fayette share a ballot style, you're not tallying Belgrade and Fayette. You're only tallying either Belgrade or Fayette. And we're going to try to keep those separate so that these ballots go back into the right town boxes at the end, and that we can match our tallies to the election night tallies. So, and again, I can't stress enough, one of my favorite quotes in administration is, if you don't have time to do it right, you don't have time to do it over. And we spent a lot of time we didn't really have yesterday doing it over. So let's concentrate, let's get it right the first time, so that by Thursday, when we're doing a tie vote, where literally every single ballot matters, every bit as much as today, but it matters whether it's a tie or if somebody is a winner at the end of that. So we will do a rolling breaks probably in about an hour. If we needed a bio break before that, and if it's my person and the others don't need a break at that point, we'll have one of the folks come and sit in so that we can keep this going, and we might do like a 10-minute bio break. Our goal is to be done by noon today with this first one, so we can actually do a second one this afternoon as planned. So anything I've forgotten?
I think you remembered everything, Deputy Secretary Flynn.
All
Given that
right,
you've done
great.
secrets.
We're going to bring over the new Sharon ballots. to be sorted between referendum and candidate.
Could I have all of the counters for Sharon Frost raise their hand so that on video folks can see that there is one counter for Sharon Frost at each table? Okay, thank you. Now could I have all the the counters for Daniel Newman, please raise your hand. Could I have all the counters for Daniel Newman, please raise your hand. Could I have all the counters for Daniel Newman, please raise your hand. Just raise your hand. Yay, excellent. So folks at home, you can see there is one counter for Sharon Frost and one counter for Daniel Newman here at the recount for State Representative House District 58. Now, Sharon Frost is the apparent winner based on the election night totals. She had a total vote of 3,158. Dan Newman had a total vote of 3,114. 6,580 votes cast, in that race. And the difference was 44, which is truly remarkable, 0.7%, less than 1%. Now, you may see the ballot boxes are open at the back of the room. Could I have the attorneys for both sides? We'll walk over and get those. So we're joined here by attorneys representing the Sharon Frost campaign and the Daniel Newman campaign. Now, before we went live stream, you checked the locks and boxes on every single seals on every single one of those boxes. So thumbs up, they're good? Okay, great. Just so folks at home, thank you so much. They're going to be here today in case there are any disputed ballots. What I want people to know is this is a canned recount of every single ballot cast by voters in House District 58. Now, those represent the towns of New Sharon, Vienna, Belgrade, Fayette, Mount Vernon, and Rome. So we have 6 towns plus our military and overseas ballots for that House District 58. The towns keep those ballots in locked boxes. Not only are the boxes locked with padlocks, but they're also sealed with special numeric seals that have special codes so that they can tell if that seal is broken, someone other than them has gotten in if there's not a chain of custody log. Now, when the clerks relinquish custody of those ballots to law enforcement as directed by the Secretary of State, then at that point in time, both the clerk, the local election official, and law enforcement are co-signing a chain of custody log. Law enforcement brought all of these ballots here to 45 Commerce Drive, which is where we're conducting all of those recounts. And then when they signed these ballots in, state election officials were signing that chain of custody log, as was law enforcement again. So you can see a date and time stamped record of the removal and custody and transport of those ballots from the municipalities here to the secure location at 45 Commerce Drive for the recount. So before we got started, attorneys from both sides went and checked those locks. They checked those codes on those seals to make sure those seals were unbroken. And they checked them against those chain of custody logs so that they could report and sign off that the ballots had in fact been kept secure. Now, for those of you watching at home, you may be familiar with the fact that some of those boxes were open previously. For example, the ballots from Fayette were utilized in that ranked choice voting tabulation. Now, once they were opened in that ranked choice voting tabulation, they then were resealed. Again, people watching, that was on camera, and attorneys from both sides present for the resealing of those boxes. So they're actually unsealed again today. Now, what you see behind are the tables. We have a Secretary of State employee overseeing counters for Sharon Frost and Daniel Newman. And right now they're just sorting out those referendum ballots from candidate ballots, because remember, Maine had 2 ballots, a minimum 2. Some municipalities, like my hometown of Manchester, had 3 because there was a municipal ballot. Yesterday, we were sorting through ballots for towns that had 4, a municipal referendum and a municipal candidate ballot, as well as the state candidate ballot and the state referendum ballot. Today, it's only a single sort. We're sorting out those referendum ballots from the candidate ballots because we need to make sure that we have every single candidate ballot and we're starting with New Sharon, those ballots for New Sharon in House District 58. New Sharon is the town that is in Franklin County. This district bridges Franklin and Kennebec County right here in central Maine. close to where I live. This is a beautiful area of the state, a lot of lakes in this area, a lot of summer camps. So folks are, again, sorting out those referendum ballots from the candidate ballots. Now, the referendum ballots, once they've sorted those out, they're going to go through and do a second count to make sure there are no hidden candidate ballots in those referendum ballots. So that is what's happening here at 45 Commerce Drive. Now, a few fun facts about elections. First and foremost, Maine uses the gold standard in election security, and that is the paper ballot. And that allows us to do these hand recounts. So far, we've done 2 recounts. Both recounts have upheld the election night results. Congratulations to Representative Mike LaJoy, who will be back for another term in Augusta, and Representative-elect Kilton Webb, who is today at the new members orientation for new legislators. The recount yesterday upholding his victory over Guy Labita. So today we're doing this recount in House District 58. Sharon Frost, the apparent winner on election night over Daniel Newman, a difference of 44 votes. That is a narrow margin, but it's not the most narrow margin. We're hoping to do a second recount today with a margin of 10 in the Farmington, Chesterville area in the race between Stephen Bunker and Randall Govan. So right now you can see as we're, all of the tables are just engaged in the sorting. So I'll take a brief break and we'll be right back. Oh, there is? Which one? Did you say which table? Right here. No. Okay. Can you pick this up for me? Can you show it to them? Okay. Can you show it to the audience? We're not gonna have. Yeah, I think. No, we.
Oh, never mind. Different job. Different job. That's one of the ones that don't really job.
No. I was like, wow, they are.
No.
I wouldn't be able to
So I just walked around to see what's going on. So D and C, we finished sorting New Sharon. That was a fast sort. D and C are now counting those New Sharon candidate ballots for Frost and Newman. Each table is lettered. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. We have 8 tables here. Over there, where you see representatives from the campaigns, I think everybody's done sorting. Okay, guys, listen to Deputy Secretary Flynn. Are you still sorting in here? So down in the corner where you saw some representatives from the campaigns, they're headed back there now. They're just watching them open those envelopes that had what's called spoiled ballots. So spoiled ballots are ballots that are stamped as void. They're not ballots that are there. Maybe someone spilled coffee. We saw a couple that looks like they've been dropped in a puddle. A voter is able to return a spoiled ballot to the clerk. The clerk marks it as spoiled or void and issues a second ballot, gives them a new ballot, a pristine ballot. Sometimes it's just as somebody messed up. They started to vote for something and then realized they changed, like they started to do the wrong thing. They could return it to the clerk. Even on election day, they can walk out of that polling curtain, behind the curtain, go say, hey, I messed up my ballot. It gets spoiled, it gets logged as a spoiled ballot. They get a new ballot, a second opportunity. So in that table in the corner, what the attorneys were watching them do, the representatives from the campaigns were watching them open, shake out those envelopes, make sure that there was nothing there except tapes from the DS200 tabulators. So those are the election night tallies, as well as any spoiled ballots, but there weren't any legitimate ballots in those envelopes at that table in the back. Now you have folks counting New Sharon, and you might have seen that attorneys got called to a table here in the back. And at that table, they were asking about voter intent. So somebody had been really messy. They weren't carefully filling in the lines of the circles. They just sort of scribbled over the circle, but it was very clear who they had selected. They did that same. And fun fact, it is okay. If you don't like to color in the lines, your vote is still going to count as long as it is clear who that intended vote is for. So we've got some counting going on. I know I saw some sorting of Belgrade, and things are going smoothly, efficiently. We've got people really focused on their and on their work.
Yep, all of it. Closer.
So report from the teams is that the Belgrade clerk did a great job separating out those referendum ballots and those candidate ballots. Thank you to the Belgrade clerk. We really appreciate that. We're still doing a double check here at 45 Commerce Drive. So it looks like a batch of referendum only, but they're sorting through to make sure there are no candidate ballots there. If it's a batch that looks like a batch of candidate ballots, they're still sorting through to make sure those are just candidate ballots. And that's really important. We saw in yesterday's recount, of course, there were a couple of spare candidate ballots put in with some of the referendum ballots, and that was important. We had to wait for those to come, go through those referendum ballots, and make sure that we had every single candidate ballot. So we are checking that work, but thank you to the Belgrade clerk for doing such a great job with your sort.
I was just looking for that. I just want to get everybody out. No, honestly.
So you can see we're doing it in a slightly different way than we did yesterday. Behind me at table C, they're already doing some counting, and each side is counting in batches of 10. They're hashing them, and then they're going to switch piles, and each counter is going to check the work of their partner counter. So every ballot is going to be counted twice. Trying to see based on the camera angle, a little tricky to see table C. It's literally right behind me. Right there, those guys, the guy with the beard and the woman with the maroon sweater, that's table C. And you can see each side is counting their ballots under supervision from campaign representatives. Today, we have a lot of campaign representatives walking the room. We're going to be doing that all day.
Yeah, yeah. Just like my girl. Oh, I hear you. Pardon me? No, thank you. Yeah, 35 years. The one on Broadway. Actually, I did 10 years on Broadway. Well, the rest of the year. No. Oh, yeah. I was in that deli meeting. Most of the baking and stuff. Yeah. They had.
So at the table right behind me, they confirm that Belgrade clerk doing a great job. Those are all candidate ballots. And you can see, again, if I tilt this a little bit, we've got two tables counting. And what means each side is counting in stacks of 10. They're counting for their own candidate first, then they're swapping. So the representative from the other candidate is doing a duplicate count, just making sure, double checking that work. Then they'll be filling out those tally sheets soon. So we have counting happening right now for New Sharon and Belgrade, as well as sorting for Belgrade. And that's taking place at 8 tables with those counters behind us. It's going very smoothly. Here live at 45 Commerce Drive. If you want to come down and watch, you can do it. We have a couple of state legislators in the room, a couple of members of the public, and we really do appreciate the presence of law enforcement, the co-location with Maine State Police and our partnership with them, as well as Secretary of State Law Enforcement Division on site to protect the ballots and protect the counters and everybody who's here today watching Democracy Live.
Yeah. I mean, oh, yeah. Oh, I know. Thank you for letting me have, you guys have something to do.
It's a little tiny. Oh, it's one thing. Thank you very much. No problem.
Guys, put this away. They're gonna do the same thing. All set on that.
My mom was that way. I love that you're in and out. Yeah. My husband. I mean, it's common. Oh, no, they were definitely. They probably have one. But like halfway there, staff. My daughter's so had to go through and take out. Well, I went down there and make it plans. They'll go back there and they're. Yeah. I only. I don't know. It doesn't. But it's that.
No.
So I have to wait for, you know. Yeah. I did, and we are. Yeah. It had more.
So we're still working on Belgrade and they are sorting at this front table, sorting those referendum ballots to make sure there are no hidden candidate ballots. In one of the batches, they did find some candidate ballots, so it really is important to do that sort. And just behind me at this table, you can see Deputy Flynn is working with the Republican and Democrat folks right there. They're looking and they had an envelope full of auxiliary ballots. So they emptied that envelope, they shook it upside down so both sides could see it was empty. And now they're counting those auxiliary ballots. What are auxiliary ballots? So for towns that utilize a tabulator, the DS200, all towns use the same tabulators. They're created by ES&S. They're nationally certified. They meet the national standards under the Election Assistance Commission. We've been using them in Maine for just over a decade. Now, when ballots are going through, sometimes ballots won't go through the scanner. Maybe the voter folded them up in a really creative way. Maybe there's a tear or something on the ballot where it won't go into the scanner. So in that case, those are put in the auxiliary slot of the DS200. They're kept with the other ballots. But at the end of the night, they have to be hand counted. And similarly, they get put in a separate envelope, they get segregated, and they're getting hand counted here as well behind us. So you can see they filled out, oh, they did. Sorry.
Nope, don't apologize. My name's, I'm here to serve.
So they tell me that they signed off on the tally sheets. They counted those auxiliary ballots as I was talking, and both sides signed off on them. So we are cooking here, things going very smoothly at 45 Commerce Drive this morning. Actually, I'm going to keep it like this so we can see this side of the room because the camera is on that side of the room.
You're almost done. Yeah.
That's all.
Yes. Do you want to validate or?
Yeah, we will.
So we're gonna, yeah, we're gonna make sure we don't wanna have these.
We're gonna finish Belgrade before we go to the next box.
You'll need it back.
Yeah.
We're ready to start.
This is the point where I should let them give me a card.
No.
No.
After we do our tally, our official tally. No lines of the one with the line that are for your here. And then if there's any, for the years, right now, they will come to me.
So people count.
We finish pulling, so that it's actually earned. And then like the prize. Yes, so I know the problem I've lost. Double down.
So it's fun.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen. You very kind, but it's a great thing.
Yeah. So just take it as counting and.
Oh, no, that was Newman, you're right. Yep, yep. Yes. Well, I think you started. Everything.
Awesome. Okay. Now, can I have you guys? Like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Careful of this, so we're doing it really.
Hey, folks, just checked with my coworkers behind us here. They're finishing up New Sharon and tallying Belgrade. So that's what the different tables are working on. Again, if you're just joining us, at each table behind here, you can see one person from the Department of the Secretary of State, that's some elections division folks, as well as on the other side of those tables, two people. One is a volunteer counter for Ms. Frost, and one is a volunteer counter for Mr. Newman. So that gives us little teams of three, one nonpartisan staff, one person from each campaign, working alongside each other to check and double check their work. So first, they were sorting out between those candidate ballots and the referendum ballots. If you were a Maine voter this year, you know you voted on all the different candidate races, as well as those 5 referendum questions. So we want to make sure that we're checking, double checking that any pile of referendum ballots is only those referendum ballots. So then we can work through those candidate ballots. So depending on what stage of counting you're seeing at different tables, once you have that stack of candidate ballots between the 2 counters, they are taking either vote for Frost or vote for Newman or a blank into separate piles and then tallying those. So the Frost person at the table is taking any Frost votes in front of them. The Newman counter is taking any Newman votes in front of them. And then blanks or something that they need to ask a question about to the lawyers in the room is going to that nonpartisan assistant at the table. Then when they're counting, they're doing stacks of 10 sort of crosshatched on top of each other. That gives us nice, easy bundles to count and then recheck. So if they've done all the sorting at their table, they have their piles of blanks, Newman and Frost. Then each of the counters will crosshatch and count their stack. Then they'll swap, double check their work. Then get that information down on those tally sheets, call the lawyers over to confirm those counts. And they'll also, you'll see slips of paper going back to the lawyers. That's because each of the campaigns is keeping their own tallies so that they can double and triple check when we're doing that full tallying by town. So each town, as we finish, will give you an update on, you know, did that match the election night results? If you were watching yesterday or on Friday, you'll see that it often does. Those numbers turn out exactly the same, those tabulators. Anyone doing hand counting of auxiliary ballots got it spot on. Sometimes, and you also saw this on Friday and yesterday, maybe someone filled in a couple of the ovals. The tabulator would call that an overvote, but maybe the person also wrote on the ballot, like, not this one, this one. And here in the light of day with our lawyers on hand from each side can see, yes, that's clearly a vote for this person or that person. Or maybe someone fully filled in one oval and just sort of rested their pen in an oval accidentally. And you just can clearly see who that vote is for. That's why we're going through this really methodically to make sure that we're counting every vote accurately so that every vote counts and we can get to that recount tally at the end of this. So this morning we're doing this race. We'll be doing another one in the afternoon in the Farmington and Chesterville seat, and we'll be back.
This is the yeah. So I was just at the middle table there, table D. And so we just had them do their tallies over again because we're doing it in alphabetical order. So Frost's votes are always going to be tallied first. Newman's votes are always going to be tallied second. So from that table, there were 108 Frost votes and 127 Newman votes. And so we just had them redo their tallies so that they can be crystal clear. They're always tallying Frost first, always tallying Newman second, so that there's no confusion about which candidate has which votes. So we're here on site. Folks are counting New Sharon and counting Belgrade. That's what's happening right now, counting New Sharon and Belgrade before moving to another county. We're live at 45 Commerce Drive at the recount for House District 58, the race between Sharon Frost and Daniel Newman, a 44 vote difference, just 0.7%, less than 1% difference in that race on election day. And today we are hand counting all of the ballots from Belgrade, New Sharon, Fayette, Mount Vernon, Rome, and Vienna. So far, we have been doing the counts for New Sharon and Belgrade. I'll walk around and see how we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes it's.
I'm still, my shoe is still New Sharon. Oh, no, Belgrade. Yeah. You guys, we just do the town if you can. No. Yeah. Exactly. So. People all would. All those numbers, something, put them back. I never, my three kids are 7 years old. Yeah, it was, you know. It's an intern.
Charlie, are you ready to sign off? Right? So.
To the left of where Johanna is.
So, very exciting. We have some results for New Sharon. Take it away, Deputy Secretary.
So, we had, the votes for Frost went up 1 to 458. The votes for Newman went up 2 to 486. And the blanks went down 3 to 57. Total ballots remain the same at 1,001. So this is what you expect when the tabulator sees an overvote or something that it counts as a blank. The humans can look at it and discern voter intent, and they can record for a candidate. And that's an expected change that we see with the hand recount.
Well, that is very exciting. And the attorneys from both sides have signed off on those totals. That means they agree with what we've just found. So kudos, thank you, Deputy
All right.
Secretary Flynn. Kudos to the New Sharon clerk. Kudos to the hardworking poll workers in New Sharon, the folks who stayed late on election night to count the ballots. Clearly, they did a magnificent job. Those totals tying out today right here at 45 Commerce Drive. So that brings us down that we have 5 towns left to go. We've finished New Sharon. It's the only town in Franklin County in House District 58. We are now doing Belgrade. So tallies are happening for Belgrade. There are tables behind me working on counting those Belgrade ballots. Quite a few more. Belgrade is the largest or one of the largest towns. Oh, it is the largest town in this district. 2,281 votes coming at ballots cast out of Belgrade. So that's what's being counted behind me, as well as in the very back. We already have table C, I believe, is started on sorting the ballots for Fayette, sorting those referendum ballots out from those candidate ballots. So we have total New Sharon. New Sharon ties out with Mr. Newman gaining 2 votes, Ms. Frost gaining 1 vote, and the blanks coming down 3, but the total ballots cast tying out perfectly. We love to see it. Counting Belgrade behind me and working on sorting Fayette. Fayette will be 3rd up. All right. We are 1/6 of the way through the recount for House District 58. Don't go away. Really fun democracy live stream behind me. Emily and I will be narrating the whole day. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows signing off momentarily.
Thank you. I'm so excited. It's probably been-
Yes.
Oh.
Julie wrote,
I think I almost. Okay.
No, this one's good for us. Yep. Oh, done. Oh, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Yep. So on the floor.
Well, no, there.
115 and 190.
One more here. Okay.
These are kind of ready to go. They've been checking it.
So all this is, these are the ballots we can allocate. Ballots there. These all say. Some cases you can tell, but they should be stamped. They also sign, or some of them like. There. All right, so click it on and make sure. We can just look over and make them see.
Yeah, all we're looking for. Probably, it could be on.
Well. Yeah. I would put the next one, put it down here. Have something for you when you. So those right there, they go out, right, or they gave people a second ballot. They made a state, and they are renting it.
You're wearing it. Full order.
They have building, right? The building. Make sure we can do that. It is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We know the balance.
Hey folks, here's an update for you. So a bunch of people are on their mid-morning break. When you see folks get up, usually get up all in mass, or if it's a Secretary of State staff, we might sub in with one of our folks working on other parts of the count for a minute, so folks can take their needed breaks. Other folks still at the tables are finishing up either those Fayette or Belgrade tallies. So we're getting close to the end tally on both of those municipalities. We'll have an update for you on those soon, once all the lawyers and everybody sign off on that. Again, those tallies, we're keeping them here, on Secretary of State side. Both campaigns are also keeping tallies, so we can compare all of those numbers, make sure they all match, everyone's in agreement, sign off on them, move on to those next municipalities. So making good, steady progress so far, and we'll keep you updated as this continues.
You don't even know. It's so like. It's like a minute. Oh, we're definitely ready.
Like quiet. And others.
I know what you
They have to log them, so we're trying to figure out instructions, but where are they making their mistakes? We just have to breakfast it on the right side as well. Yes.
So I'm more leaving unless it's right here. But
Tallying, yeah, or just tallying.
I'll take it. We're taking hands with everyone else right now.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
So now that folks are coming back from their breaks, they are starting to do that sorting in Mount Vernon. Again, that's separating out the candidate ballot from the referendum ballot. If you're a Maine voter this fall, you know you had that one ballot with all of the candidate races on it, another ballot with those 5 referendum questions. So making sure that we have all of the candidate ballots that need to be counted and that we're separating out those other ones, putting those away, double checking that there aren't any candidate ballots mixed in. That way we can count every vote in this specific recount. None of those candidate ballots are left in the referendum ballot stacks. That way we can get to the accurate count for this recount of the House race between Sharon Frost and Daniel Newman.
Yep, you guys all still there.
Yeah, I can take notes on the.
So double check.
Yeah.
Ready for it.
Sorry, I know it's like.
So again, you can see these rolling breaks as folks finish up a task, finish up a bundle of ballots. Taking their breaks, making sure they're stretching their legs so they're nice and sharp to keep counting once they get back here. If you're just joining us, you'll see other people sort of walking around between the tables. Those are lawyers or other representatives for the campaigns, checking in on those counting, maybe looking at a ballot that it's not clear to the folks at the table, whether that's a Frost or a Newman vote, going through, again, both sides working together to go over those rules for what the voter intent is on a ballot. So far, pretty low key here today as we're going through the ballots. If you watched any of our live stream yesterday or Friday, there was even more sorting happening because we had municipalities with multiple House races within them. So today, both this morning and in the afternoon recount, all the municipalities only have the one House district. So the only sorting that we're doing is between those referendum and the candidate ballots. That's why you might see it moving a little bit faster than yesterday. Again, once they've done that sorting between the two ballot styles, then they're putting the stack of ballots between the counters for Frost and Newman and pulling those to either side, depending on how the voter voted. And then also giving the blanks or maybe someone who marked both ovals or wrote in something to the nonpartisan Secretary of State Department staffer at each table. Then they count in sets of 10 each side, 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. And then they're swapping those stacks and double checking the count of the other person at the table. So lots of checking and double checking of everything we do here. In these recounts, we want to make sure we are counting every vote and that every vote counts.
Everything boss. One of the things. Like driving it or thinking.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah, really.
Oh, yes. Well, they are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking. Yep.
If there's people, they'll read it. And then they'll.
Felicia, they got one for you to sign off.
Referendum from Canada.
Folks, so I just checked in with Deputy Secretary Flynn and two of the lawyers from each of the campaigns. And we all confirmed that Belgrade, the election night counts were spot on. So no changes from those election night counts in Belgrade. 1,025 votes for Sharon Frost. 1,174 votes for Dan Newman. And 82 blanks for a total ballots cast of 2,281. So that's the count that was found on election night. That is a count that we confirmed here today. Love to see that. Great work by the Belgrade clerk.
This is actually going to be. That were. I don't know. Now. Is that a year?
Yeah, okay, so. Your profit check. For the minor candidate.
And I paid.
So right now, everyone is working on Mount Vernon, and next up will be the town of Rome.
Yeah, I tried to do it. I had the auxiliary.
I don't know, Zach.
Oh, really?
A good school, like that.
So you just saw a flurry of activity at that table in the back there. They were looking at the auxiliary ballots. So if you've been watching any of the ranked choice voting live streams or some of our earlier recount live streams, you know those auxiliary ballots are ones that for whatever reason could not be fed through the DS 200 in the municipalities on election night. Maybe someone got a little boisterous in crumpling their ballot and it just wouldn't feed through in the same way that not all dollar bills go through the slot if you're using a vending machine. But those are hand counted on election night. There's usually only a handful, especially in a smaller town. So those get hand counted on election night. They were just taking a look at those at the table back there with Secretary of State staff, as well as the counters and lawyers and other representatives for each campaign.
I said, or the thing. Right. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. No, but it's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be down.
Great.
Right.
So you want to have these some and if someone's story. Who else is sorting? You want to stay up, so I don't want to. Oh, we didn't say yet. No, it's okay yet. So let's give half of these to the Cory. Yeah, you know, learn like.
Right back at it. Ready?
Around, sitting in the. We're good. Or another. Oh, yeah.
That's one of those, water flows out. You need one, 2 minutes.
You have a Band-Aid?
For Andy.
We didn't.
We have another.
I brought it there.
Here.
I know.
You'll know.
First time he's. I just want to mess up.
All right.
So you can see at this table, right behind me, that they are doing that side to side sorting between the Frost and Newman votes. So the Frost counter will take the votes for her, the Newman counter will take the votes for him. Any blank ballots will go across the table to that Secretary of State staff person. And that's when they'll start doing the counting, but first they separate out by votes for whom. Which candidate, or is it blank? Then they'll start that counting in tens, cross-hatching each way, double check each other's work, then fill out the tally sheets, both for the Secretary of State's office as well as the two campaigns. That way, as we finish and total each town, we can compare with the campaigns and their tallies, making sure we're all in agreement that the count is accurate and move on to that next municipality.
No, no problem.
So at this table right here, you can see them double checking those counts of 10. So they each counted out in stacks of 10 and then any left over unless it finished exactly on that 10. Cross-hatching each way. Then they swapped ballots between the Frost and Newman counters to double check that work, make sure that we're counting those exactly right. So you can see that happening at this table right here.
Those are the ones you have to do. Linear or the whole thing? No, it's those. You know that these. Know that this. And at this point, I would like. So we don't need to keep them double check. And I have 11 now. So. Should be added to leftover. We'll add it, go through the ten again. Go to them. And once that's good.
No.
There we go. Yeah.
So as you can see there, multiple eyes on every count, people double checking their work, triple checking that work, making sure that each of those stacks of 10 is exactly 10, that we're counting up to 50 when we bundle.
Yeah.
Checking and double checking is exactly what we're doing here today. Now, we have those totals from election night, but it's awfully close between Daniel Newman and Sharon Frost. So we're doing this recount here today, confirming what those exact totals were before the legislature gets sworn in a couple weeks.
Right? Yeah. Here. Let's see. They're not for sure. That's fine. I feel occasionally like the pages, like, yeah, especially I have a few people on the screen and they love to like. Not yet. Yeah, I just have, thank you, that will help. Nothing tracked. I do have a bid. Yeah. Yeah. But it needs a line. So these are.
But yeah.
And 30.
So with this table here, you can see that representatives from each campaign have gone over. And what's happening at the table is that the Secretary of State staffer is taking those counted out stacks that are crosshatched and bundling them in sets of 50. A good round number for those later tallies. And then taking any leftovers, making sure we know exactly how many are there. Again, those are stacks that both campaign counters have confirmed. So first they're doing frost alphabetically, the first of the candidates. So they'll tally up all the votes that she received in that bundle that they've been working on the table. Then we'll do the exact same thing for Newman, do the same thing for the blanks. The lawyers are there confirming as that goes. Then they're getting, so the tally sheet for the Secretary of State's office gets filled out. Then the tally sheets that go back to the two campaigns get filled out. And when every town is finished, that's when we're comparing those totals, seeing how they compare to election night, getting lawyers to sign off on those so we can move on to those next towns. We're making great progress. I'll go see where we're at with our different towns.
Okay.
I'm always looking for little things like that. Yeah, when I was.
20. 30. 50.
So again, the tallies that folks are working on behind me are Mount Vernon and Fayette. Rome will be our next one, and then Vienna and any of those uniformed and overseas citizen ballots. As usual, if you've been watching these other live streams, do those handful of votes in the end. But definitely making really good progress, being just just after 11 o'clock here. Looks like we're getting a few more totals going back to their respective sides, and I'll have a tally update for you before too long.
No, that's zero.
Oh, yes. My name. What about?
Oh, it's still seven. Sorry. Yeah. It's gone, it's gone.
I like the election there. And then. That's what I need. That's on my calendar. Yeah. And then I was there. I think things are interacting, you're making and when you just go check it right now, it's but he thinks it doesn't have equity or. There, what are we there? 9 on here?
Yeah. Oil.
Oh, it's not. I think I have an explanation. So these are the council record numbers that they assigned. Unread. And the French choice we provided those here to the council records to make sure we have the right number of council records. Council records. So it's working.
It feels pretty good. I felt like it was, I
Oh, it's just sort of.
The tops of the work, they have down there, but it has an auxiliary dash.
Should be candidates for being.
Yeah, they're all, we're gonna read it all.
So at that table, just over there, we have the beginning of those Rome ballots. So some of those are auxiliaries. Again, those ones that couldn't be fed through the tabulator, that DS 200 that's at the local level on election day for whatever reason. There's also some spoiled ballots and different envelopes in that batch. So if maybe you're voting absentee at home and you spill your coffee on your ballot, or you're voting in person and for some reason you made a stray mark that means that you're going to need a fresh ballot to do. Just go ask clerk or another election official to spoil your ballot and receive a new one. They will make a note that as a spoiled ballot will not be counted, and they will give you a fresh one. Now, once you get that fresh one, there's only a couple times you can spoil your ballot and get a new one, not unlimited ballots. But that way, you know, if you make a stray mark and realize that you're gonna need a new one, there is a provision in law to make that already happen. Or as we've heard from folks, maybe they got coffee or soy sauce if you're trying to eat while you're also filling out your ballot. We do have a provision for that. So we want to check those spoiled ballots, make sure they're all marked, that we're counting only the ballots that were voted, not those spoiled ballots. So those auxiliary ones, even if they can't be fed through the tabulator, still counted, hand counted on election night, counted here as well. And those are segregated off by themselves, so we know exactly what number there are, we know where to find them. If you're watching the ranked choice voting tabulation, you know that the DS200 memory devices get uploaded on those hardened, secured, not connected to the internet computers. And then we hand create that cast vote record for the auxiliary ballots because for whatever reason, they just couldn't be read, fed through that DS200 at the local level. All Maine municipalities use that same tabulator. So whether you're voting in any of these municipalities in this recount or elsewhere in the state, if you have a tabulator, it's a DS200. Only at the RCV tabulation, that ranked choice voting tabulation, are we using that DS850, bigger machine, faster, to get all of those ballots that were hand counted in those 155 or so municipalities on election night.
We like double check these or.
No.
Yeah, D5 on. Yeah. Yep. And put,
Because that's one candidate. That's the- Yeah. To see the state together because they were voting. So these are all DNS, it's all candidates. So are we ready to go? Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
So we still have tallying happening in other spots around here. But here at this table right behind me, we are starting to do that sorting out of the candidate ballots to either candidate or blank for Vienna. So I'm getting closer and closer to completing the recount here in this Belgrade area seat.
I think I.
So does we can machine that? Thank you.
Oh.
You got three?
It's another Angus Maine for state senate.
Have an auxiliary tally.
Yeah.
The blank one.
By any of your natives.
What?
It's like a callous situation. Like someone said it wrong once and then it caught on forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I don't know.
I mean, they'd be working on it. I think it's beautiful, they showed up. They were like, I want to participate. I don't like any of the offers. I'm gonna do my baby. Yeah, yeah. Quite right. Right, right. Blank. Exactly, you will call
It's really.
Yeah. Yep.
I got you back.
Yeah.
Well, but I also want to. So we're looking just for, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're looking up here.
Yeah. We're even down, yeah. We're just here on that side. Yep.
It's gotta be people who are confused with one of the candidates that are on the hold, right? Yeah.
No, I'm not.
For you.
You're putting 50.
So we have at a table right over here. This way. So over this way, we have a table that's working on UO ballots. Those are ballots from uniform service and overseas voters. So if you're an American living abroad, if you're a service member who's deployed, you still have the right to vote here in our Maine elections. If the last place that you lived was in Maine. So you are able to request a ballot, vote, get it back to us, and exercise that right to vote as an American, even if you're not living in the US. Really important part of democracy. It was founded, or the UOCAVA, that abbreviation that you've maybe heard us say over a few days, is the abbreviation of a law that was signed in 1986 by President Reagan. So it goes back a ways. So that table that Mary Ann is sitting at, this one right there, is working on those UOCAVA ballots. Voting on all the same things that we still living here do, but just because you're deployed, just because you're living abroad, doesn't mean you give up that right to vote in our Maine elections.
All right.
Hey folks, so just got word from the elections folks, that Mount Vernon, another one of our municipalities here in this recount, came out exactly perfectly in this recount compared to those election night totals. So in Mount Vernon, Sharon Frost got 608 votes. Daniel Newman got 533. There were 53 blanks for a total ballots cast of 1,194. So just like Belgrade that I announced a little bit ago, came out exactly the same as election night. Now in New Sharon, if you missed this announcement earlier, Sharon Frost had one more vote than election night for a total of 458. Daniel Newman had 2 more votes than election night for 486, and there were 3 fewer blanks for a total of 57. Again, in New Sharon, the total ballots cast was 1,001.
Right.
I don't know why I'm so confident. Well, it means, for me, it means that they're at the end.
Completion. It's okay to, because this, that. It was a bit of shit going It's not like it's a counting plan about things.
Oh, yep.
Got it. You were problem.
Okay, can you, move over and just come out and remember that to say that?
We have, Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. On another one?
It's like really fun.
Okay.
Fired from everything.
I thought I was.
But it needs to be in the.
I have somebody else.
Yeah, we're back.
Let me. Okay. I'm gonna have somebody else go through. Yeah. I'm gonna have somebody else.
Yeah, we just want, we're just sort of.
Yeah, correct.
Buy it.
Buy it.
Buy it.
I was just correct on this.
For all you people at home, it's buying it.
And I didn't even look at it.
And
This is H5.
Yeah, at least one of these by now.
We're gonna do that at the.
Yes, so showing my. Just keep it under. I know what that.
You have the back, feedback, 191.
Kelly Pre-Rock.
Okay. Alrighty. The virtual meeting.
We have
Okay.
10. Great.
All right. 30. 40.
Oh, no. Oh, we haven't. No, I don't think that's.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, so you know,
Yeah.
I know. We are ready for something if you have to. We are, everything has already been dealt with. Yeah.
Not a good sign, but I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's.
I really, I had that.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the tile or anything?
It's better to separate.
Somebody go get that.
So. They're basically. So you're gonna be. That walk right past it.
Giving it to her.
I was like.
Innovation Rome is right.
So we're gonna be doing
We actually know that the districts that are being facilitated for you. We're gonna.
Because I have one. Basically.
Oh, no, maybe they don't. It's.
Our windows are so funny.
I go through the shower.
So I have some results from Rome, which is really exciting. I know Emily shared results from, and Rome has tied out exactly. We have 361 votes for Sharon Frost, 331 votes for Dan Newman, and 37 blanks. So kudos to the clerk in Rome. Kudos to all of the election volunteers who worked so hard on election night to count those ballots in Rome. It's really wonderful when those totals tie out. That brings our totals. So we have New Sharon. Now I know that Emily shared Belgrade and Mount Vernon and Fayette. When I was absent, we've just updated Rome. I'm going to check and see if we have Vienna. Meanwhile, you might see some tables behind me doing some sorting. That's because they are looking, we are missing one military and overseas ballot. So we're looking in all of the counties. Those ballots were sorted yesterday by county, but we're wondering if there's a pesky military and overseas ballot hiding in one of those boxes, and we are going to check every box and find those ballots. All right, don't go away. We're here at the House District recount for State Representative District 58. This is the race between Sharon Frost and Daniel Newman. On election night, Sharon Frost, the apparent winner with 3,158 votes to Daniel Newman's 3,114 votes, a vote difference of 44. So yet another close race, one of 9 races that we're recounting, 10 races, including CD2, that we will be recounting by hand because those margins were less than 1%. We have 2 additional recounts we're doing at candidate requests where there are larger margins. But to have 10 races within 1% is a testament to just how purple these districts are, just how competitive these districts are. And that's a testament to the independent redistricting process we have in Maine with equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans and 1 independent chair working on what we call reapportionment after each decennial census. I'm going to take these Rome official results back to Deputy Secretary Flynn.
Thank
You have Vienna too.
I've given it to them and got their copy right there this time.
Okay, great.
That was perfect.
Vienna came out perfectly too. We're just waiting for the attorneys from both sides to verify Vienna, and then they'll be signing off on Vienna. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Oh. No. Oh, we're keeping them very separate. Yeah.
They have one point. Not at all.
Very firm. But it had, they think they're. want me to go to here?
Yeah, they was all there. The other thing, kind of back up, right now, looking at the company on your water was a lot. You don't have to go for district 50.
I'll let you know.
You don't have to go. This is great. So thank you.
You're looking. Okay, so that's some Somerset here. And multiple Somerset. A lot of that.
Okay. Yeah. Together. Yep.
Billy James said. They're looking through the accounts. They've got this sorted.
So I'll check those.
And we have another town. We have results from Vienna. And again, looks like those results tied out perfectly. 229 votes for Sharon Frost, 187 votes for Daniel Newman, and 24 blank ballots. So far, every single town has really tied out perfectly. This is great news. We had at least one town where blanks were reallocated to Newman and to Frost based on voter intent. That's pretty normal. Sometimes that DS tabulator, or perhaps a voter has made a very faint mark. It's not read by the machine, or perhaps they started to fill out for one, then crossed it out and filled out for somebody else. That's something the machine would read as an overvote, as a double vote, but humans can take a look at that and say, oh, the voter started out with making a mistake, but chose this other person. So the good news is so far we have all of the results tying out. This recount continues to help hold the victory of Sharon Frost. We've looked at New Sharon, Belgrade, Fayette, Mount Vernon, Rome, Vienna, with attorneys from both sides initialing those totals. The only one that hasn't tied out are those Yokava votes. And so they're going back through to sort through the counties and look for that last vote. So stay tuned, don't go away. We'll be back as we find those last, we're looking for those military and overseas ballots. They were sorted by county yesterday. So the Kennebec and Franklin County ballots should have been together, but there was one short, so they're doing one final check.
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah, we can continue with this review. We're gonna so folks, table F found that missing House District 58 ballot. It was just stuck in a pile for another county. And that's why we do this check and check twice. Everything has to tie out. So they're going to tabulate those Uocava ballots, make sure that the attorneys have signed off, and then we'll be ready to call this one a day just in time for lunch.
No, that's no. It's gotta be.
I need a tally sheet for you, for the one. Yeah.
That was the last time I found it. It was from our guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're ready for sign off by the attorneys of the Incombe. You guys are ready to sign off on the Incombe? And then I think for the finals, right?
Gotta do the locks, right?
We'll
The
need,
lock for the next one.
we'll need to, yes, I think we'll do that during, yeah, get that. Get that ready. We won't have you do the lots, but we'll have you do the lots. But I did look at the ballots away. And bring the new ones out.
I just don't want them to be gone and you go, where are they?
No, I think it's to come back at one time. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you guys get more,
On your power. On your power.
so the attorneys have signed off on the Yokava totals as well. Once we found that ballot, it was very quick to total them. Now they're sitting down and they're doing the tallies for the entire race. We will announce that momentarily. You can see right behind me, Deputy Flynn is sitting with representatives from both campaigns while they go over the math to make sure that the numbers add up. I'm Secretary of State Shanna Bellows here at the House recount for State Representative District 58. That was the race between Sharon Frost, an unenrolled candidate from Belgrade, against Daniel Newman, a Republican candidate from Belgrade as well. And it appears that the recount has upheld those initial ballots. They're photocopying the paperwork now. I believe they've all signed off on it. That's a really important part of our recount process, is that the candidates sign off on everything. So we're really excited to be finishing up here. Do we have some results? If we do, we can sign off on this live stream.
Well, are you ready? Yeah, now why don't we do that? We'll have everything filled out.
Have you guys, do we have the results so we can share it with a live stream? We got folks watching at home. Okay, so in the final tabulation, Sharon Frost picks up 1 vote, ending with the official total of 3,159 votes. Daniel Newman picked up 2 votes, ending with 3,116 votes. There were 305 blanks that went down 3. That makes sense because the tabulators, they don't always understand what the voter's trying to do. If the voter fills in 2 or cross out 1, but that's where voter intent comes into play with the hand recount. So 3 less blanks, 2 of which went to Newman, 1 of which went to Frost based on that voter intent. The total number of ballots tried out, 6,580. So here we have it. Our final result, a 43 vote difference between Sharon Frost and Daniel Newman in House District 58. So congratulations, Representative-elect Frost. And we will be coming back to this live stream promptly at 1 o'clock for our next recount. Our next recount being at that race in Farmington between Stephen Bunker and Randall Govan. That is the next race that we will be doing. Oh, Deputy Secretary Flynn, glad to have you here. You've got some finals?
So the final totals, 3,159 for Frost, 3,116 for Newman, and 305 blank votes for a total of 6,580. And that again, remember in one town, the blanks went down by 3 and votes for Newman went up 2 and Frost went up 1. So not a net change in the number of ballots, but a net change in the ballots that could be counted manually. So
Great job, Deputy
Hey.
Flynn.
perfect result.
Perfect result. All right, folks, we're signing off now. We're going to be back here promptly at 1 for the next recount. Thank you.